Do you know what period poverty is? In Pakistan, only 12% of women use commercial sanitary products, and only a quarter understand their period to be a natural biological process. Period poverty is not just a lack of resources, but of education and freedom to deal with something existential for women. Menstruation is often shrouded in stigma and silence, but it is also actively exploited when governments levy taxes on basic sanitation. But in Pakistan, an 18% sales tax on sanitary products has just been revoked in a victory for women's rights campaigners. It followed a constitutional petition, a public campaign, and years of grassroots work on an issue many in Pakistan have long refused to discuss out loud. The change is significant, but campaigners say it is incomplete. An MEE report this week by Florence Ingleby tells the story of the people fighting this battle. My guest today is one of them. Mahnoor Omer is the human rights activist who launched the constitutional petition, along with tax lawyer Ahsan Jahangir Khan. She joins me now. Mahnoor, welcome to MEE Live. Can you just tell us, what does period poverty actually look like on a day-to-day basis?
Thank you for having me. And as you said brilliantly, period poverty has it doesn't just start or end with resources, but those resources are of no good if women don't know why they should be using menstrual products such as pads and tampons as opposed to cheaper alternatives like reusing dirty cloth rags. And this is a system, period poverty is a system that unfortunately has been a cycle, I would say, that's been going on for far too long. Illiteracy, not having awareness about how to take care of your health, about what menstruation is. I remember that even while I was studying in I would say, a very well-to-do private school for my middle schooling, there was girls in my class that would get their period and would be crying and would be shocked. They wouldn't know what it is. And the teachers, instead of having an open conversation about it to the snickering boys and snickering girls even, would just hush it away and say, okay, run to the bathroom. Don't let anybody see your shame. It's a system that I think perpetuates women being isolated from their life, from economic opportunities, from sports, from education. A UNICEF report in Pakistan, I think from 2024, says 1 in 5 girls miss school because of their periods. It's seen as something to be ashamed of. And also religiously speaking, there's also certain misconceptions that it makes you impure. You can't pray during your period. You can't go into a mosque or temple during your period. Yes, perhaps those religious convictions are true, but that doesn't mean you can't go to school, or you can't, go work, or you can't be in public at all. And so it's a vicious cycle of just not caring about women's health and not informing them, because education is power, and that is power taken away from women and young girls.
I suppose that's why you don't just use the word period poverty in your campaigning, but the word menstrual injustice, which is a little bit more active in its terminology. Now, you successfully took this battle from the household to a constitutional petition to the floor of Parliament and finally law. What were the biggest obstacles that you faced?
The first obstacle I would say that SN and I faced was a fight with the government in itself to have our case accepted. The jurisdiction came to be an issue where the government, now that proudly is saying that this is an essential item and we're proud to stand by women's rights, initially was very reluctant to even let our case be heard. Our case started in September of 2025, and it dragged on for months because of them refusing to issue a reply. It's like the battle of the forms, we call it as lawyers, right? So until the government gave an official reply, para by para, to our petition and our arguments, the case could not proceed. So that was the first thing, to get our respondents really to take us seriously. Secondly, the backlash societal, speaking about society, it is a taboo, it is a stigmatized topic. But here I do want to add, to my utter surprise, it's been very positive. There was obviously some trolls, some people who said, this is a very trivial topic. Who cares if they use pads or don't use pads? They're not going to die. Well, actually, they can die. Period poverty does take lives. Menstrual injustice does take lives. When you get infections, when you get diseases and you don't even have access to healthcare because of you being in a far-flung rural area. When you are excluded from economic opportunities or schooling. These are all interconnected issues. But backlash-wise, I would say I've been very shocked. But all I felt that young men and young women especially, have been very supportive of this petition from the very start.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. So now the 18% sales tax is gone. What does that change for women and girls in Pakistan? And what does it not change? What still needs to be done?
So, as a lawyer, we're not very good at math, but I can say 18% isn't a very large amount, right? So 18% tax being removed doesn't change the entire system. It's not that women will now be flocking to the store and switching out alternatives to buy pads. No. But what I do think that it is a win, symbolically speaking, because I personally believe that before June of 2026, the word menstruation, the word mahvari, has never been uttered on the National Assembly floor. And to have our male finance minister speak of this so openly, I think sets a very important precedent. It sets a precedent that the government is finally willing to take women's health seriously. I also want to add that our legal battle is not over. The judgment on this case is still yet to be written by Justice Jawad of the Lahore High Court. We are rallying, we are advocating, and we are fighting for them to be completely tax-free. Therefore, this means there will be no customs tax, no value-added tax, no tax of any sorts on them. Currently, super absorbent polymer paper and other raw materials used in creating such period products are normally imported into Pakistan. And in an ideal world, I would like to live in a country perhaps like Scotland, where these products are free. So that would be the most ideal situation. But right now, this in itself is still a win. It can be used as a precedent to now advocate for other issues when it comes to polycystic ovary syndrome and other health problems that women have and young girls have, sex education even.
You said that menstruation has never before been uttered on the floor of the Punjab Assembly. How significant is that? And I suppose another issue here is that women hold just 66 seats in Pakistan's Punjab Assembly out of 371. So how relevant is that question of representation to this wider issue of period poverty all over the country?
Yes, so the Punjab Assembly comment that I made, which also kind of everyone was sending me a screenshot off of the ME Twitter, was actually, I made that comment because the Chief Minister of Punjab, which can fit many, many European countries, is a woman. But it's not the Punjab Assembly that brought this change, it's the National Assembly, although I don't think this word has been uttered on either floors. And it's quite disappointing. And the evidence is here. In the Sales Tax Act, 1990, there's a sixth schedule. In that sixth schedule, there's a list of essential items. These essential items in the Sales Tax Act are tax exempt. You know what's in that list? Bovine semen, which is used for cattle farming, processed cheese. How is it that you have these other not essential items, I might argue, in that list, but you don't have something as basic as pads, as tampons, as menstrual products? And so debates in Parliament, I think, in Pakistan also need to take a turn where I, as a young activist and as a woman and as a citizen of the country, I demand for our representatives, especially our women representatives, to bring these topics up and to have open discussions on what laws are gender responsive and what aren't.
Now, finally, Mahnoor, you were named on Time magazine's Women of the Year list. Does this recognition signify meaningful change is underway?
This recognition has honestly been an honor. It's been very flattering, and I aim to use it as I would say an important bargaining chip, because I think it places on me a certain responsibility now to sort of be, I would say, a little internationally well-known activist, where I feel I have a stronger platform now to voice my concerns. And I am very grateful to journalists, to the media, because I don't think it's just our legal petition that got the parliament to make this change. I also think it's international and national media pressure. When a conversation is going so viral, it's obviously these parliamentarians are scrolling through the same apps as we are. They're looking at what the world is saying and they know the world is watching. So with this recognition, I think my resolve to advocate for gender responsive legislation and ending the injustice that comes by virtue of the law is now stronger. And it's just the start, really, of my journey, I think, as a lawyer and as an activist.
Mahnoor Omer, thank you so much for your time.